Good morning, students. We have been trying to understand modern Indian history. And after the decline of the Mughal Empire, we have seen the rise of Sikh power, we have seen the rise of Marathas. And today we will be trying to discuss about the advent of European powers. Because of certain changes that have come about in Europe after 16th century, predominantly the movements which have influenced European intellectual mind have been the Renaissance and the Reformation movement. And after the Renaissance and Reformation movement, there was a lot of intellectual quickening in European markets. And the European people have set on sail in search of fresh markets and fresh areas of resources. So, in that kind of endeavors, the European powers also have come down to the Indian subcontinent. So today we will try to understand the advent of European powers to the Indian subcontinent. There were basically four powers which have come to the Indian subcontinent. You have the coming of the Portuguese, you have the coming of the British, you have the coming of the Dutch, and then you have the coming of the French. So we will just try to have a brief understanding of all these four powers which have come to the Indian subcontinent. Here I'm just showing you a map and on which on the left side you can see them coming on the seas, and on the right you can see the routes which they have taken on the seas. And these were the general routes on which most of the European powers have come to the Indian subcontinent. Basically one in search of markets, then other one in search of resources, mineral resources and other resources. So we will just try to discuss about these very points. Okay, in the first point that I'm trying to tell you is that the European Age of Discovery started with the Portuguese navigators, where Prince Henry, the navigator, started a maritime school in Portugal. Okay, so Prince Henry, in those days, most of the European royal families, they used to sponsor adventures. And one area of adventures which most of the royal families in Europe have sponsored have been adventures on the sea. And Portugal had been one of the countries which had started a maritime school. So you have the Portuguese coming to the Indian subcontinent at the outset. So the resulting of this technical and scientific discoveries led Portugal to develop the most advanced ships, including the Cravel, the Carack, and the Gallon, where for the first time in history, maritime navigation was possible. Okay, so as the second point is defining the first point, that there was a lot of technical and scientific discoveries which made Portugal come up with advanced ships like Cravel. They are the names of the ships: Cravel, Carack, and Gallon. And for the first time, they made the maritime navigation possible. So the Portuguese Empire led to the Portuguese Kingdom to discover and map most of the globe and find sea routes as far as the east and the west, such as the remarkable voyage to find the sea route to India via the Cape of Good Hope. Okay, so that is the route in which the Portuguese have experimented to come down to the Indian subcontinent. So as far as we are concerned, the Portuguese in India, it was the Portuguese who first discovered a direct sea route to India, as most of you know. The Portuguese sailor Vasco da Gama arrived at Calicut, an important seaport located on the southwest of India, on May 20, 1948 AD. So that was the first European contact with the Indian subcontinent, that is the Portuguese. Here in Portuguese, the King Zamaron, the local ruler, received him and bestowed on him certain privileges. The local ruler here, Zamaron, the Calicut, we are talking of the Calicut, and after staying in India for a period of 3 months, Vasco da Gama returned with a rich cargo which he had sold in the European market at an exorbitant price, 60 times the cost of the voyage. That itself indicates the importance of the voyages which were connecting India with European markets. So markets became very important and goods became very important. And this was the reason most of the European powers have come to the Indian subcontinent. But soon, Vasco da Gama came back to India for the second time in 1501. He set up a trading factory at Kannur. Okay, so the first time he went with profit, and the second time he comes back to establish a factory at Kannur. With establishing of trade links, Calicut, Kannur, and Cochin emerged the significant Portuguese centers in India. So the first important trade links between India and the European markets have been the three centers. They are Calicut, Kannur, and Cochin. So here, trade links got established with the Portuguese. Arab traders became jealous of the rise and success of the Portuguese, and hence caused enmity bred between Portuguese and the local king Zamaron. The hostilities grew and led to a full-fledged military face-off between them. So you have a conflict when the Portuguese were prospering as a result of their trade, and they were expanding in India. There were hostilities between the Arab traders, and this ended in a kind of enmity, and King Zamaron also developed hostilities, and a full-fledged conflict between King Zamaron and the Portuguese took place. King Zamaron was defeated by the Portuguese. With the victory over Zamaron, the military superiority of the Portuguese was established. So, as usual, the Portuguese established their superiority with the defeat of King Zamaron in his battle. After that defeat, you have the Portuguese expansion in India. In 1505, Francisco de Almeida was appointed as the first Portuguese governor to India. His policy being centric of controlling the Indian Ocean was known as the Blue Water Policy. So the way the Portuguese wanted to control the Indian Ocean, they developed a policy which they called the Blue Water Policy. And Alfonso de Albuquerque, who was replaced by who replaced Almeida as the governor in 1509 AD and captured Goa from the Sultan of Bijapur in 1510. Is considered the real founder of the Portuguese power in India. So, Albuquerque had taken up a battle, and in which he defeated the Sultan of Bijapur in 1510, and he is considered to be the real founder of Portuguese power in India. Okay, so after that, Goa subsequently became the headquarters of the Portuguese settlements in India. Portuguese hold over the coastal areas and superiority in the naval power helped them significantly. And by the end of the 16th century, the Portuguese captured not only Goa, but Daman, Diu, and Salsette, and also vast stretches along the Indian coast. So the expansion of Portuguese was done after 1509, and it was complete. So now we will also see how the Portuguese power declined. The Portuguese rise in India had a short life, as the new arrival trading communities from Europe posed a big challenge to them. Which means that after the Portuguese were successful in India, when they were prospering with their trade in Indian contact, other European powers which were there, which were higher powers, like for example, the British, the French, the Dutch. The British and French were definitely higher powers. So these powers had put their concentration on their contacts with India. So struggle among various rival trading blocs ensued, in which Portuguese had to give way to the more powerful and enterprising competitors, gradually rendering them an apartheid entity. So, as I was telling you just now, the British and the French had come down. Along with them, the Dutch had come down, and all of them were superior to the Portuguese in terms of their strength and in terms of their kingdoms, even in Europe. So ultimately, the Portuguese had to make way for the British and the French and the Dutch. So the next power that we are going to have an idea is the arrival of the British. Arrival of the British and the establishment of British East India Company was the outcome of the Portuguese traders who earned enormous profit by selling their merchandise in India. So the way the British were having information from their Portuguese counterparts in Europe, and they realized that they made enormous profits by selling their merchandise in India, and this made them, that is the British traders, to set their eyes on India and develop trade links with India, and if possible, go for an investment policy. And that is what has happened with the British in the Indian context. Being motivated by the successful business stories of the Portuguese, a group of English merchants or merchant adventurers, we can call them, formed a company, and this company was called the East India Company in the year 1599. So, with the success of the Portuguese story, some of the English merchants, they came together and floated a company which they called as the East India Company in the year 1599. And this East India Company came down to India. The company received a royal charter from Queen Elizabeth on 1st December 31 in the year 1600. Sorry. In the year 1600, authorizing it to trade in the East. Queen was herself a shareholder in the East India Company. So that is the origin of the East India Company. So after the East India Company have come, they have expanded in the West and the South and in the East. So we will, in the first phase, we will see their expansion in the West and the South. Subsequently, in the year 1608, East India Company sent Captain William Hawkins to the court of the Mughal Emperor, and Mughal Emperor, who was the Jahangir, was the Mughal Emperor, to secure the royal patronage. He succeeded in setting royal permit to the company, and he was successful in establishing its factories at various places on the western coast of India. So they have landed and they were taking control. They were successful in taking control the western coast in the first phase. Then in the year 1615, Edith Thomas Roe was sent by Emperor James I of England to Jahangir's court with a plea for more concessions for the company. Okay, so in the first phase, it was a mendicant phase. Jahangir was pleading and Captain William Hawkins was at the mercy of the Mughal court, and they got the permission, and then Sir Thomas Roe was sent by Emperor James I of England to Jahangir's court with a plea for more concessions for the company. So they're setting their feet. Roe was completely diplomatic and thus successfully secured a royal charter giving the company freedom to trade in the whole of the Mughal territory. Okay, so Roe was successful in his negotiations with the Mughal Emperor, and he gets sanctions to trade in the whole of the Mughal territory. Okay, so that is the next area in which the British have expanded is in the East. So we have just seen in the South and the West, and now they have started expanding in the East. After establishing its factories in South and West India, the company started to focus on East India, particularly Bengal, a significant province and Mughal Empire. Okay, so the Bengal governor was the governor of Bengal was Siraj-ud-Dowlah in 1651 AD, and he allowed the East India Company to carry out its trade activities in Bengal. This was an important development. So you have South and you have West, and now they are concentrating on East. A factory was set up in Hooghly, and it was established in 3 villages. The 3 villages of Tutnati, Govindpur, and Calcutta were purchased in 1698 by the company, to build a factory over there. Subsequently, Fort William was raised in order to provide protection to the family. So they first came, they came for trade, and then they went on for investments, and now they're building up a factory to protect their trade. Okay, the Dutch people, the Dutch are the present Holland, which we are talking of. The present, the people of Holland is the present Netherlands. Okay, or called the Dutch. Next to the Portuguese, the Dutch set their feet in India. Historically, the Dutch have been experts in sea trade, and they had been here in 1602 under United East India Company of the Netherlands, and was given permission by the Dutch government to trade in the East Indies, including India. Okay, so after the decline of the Dutch, we have French, and the Dutch power declined between 1608 to 1825. They were there, and the rise of the British power in Eastern trade posed serious challenge to the commercial interests of the Dutch, leading to the bloody warfare between them, in which Britishers were the clean winners. So the British came into conflict with the Portuguese first, and then they came into conflict with the Dutch also. And in both the cases, the British won, and owing to the huge resources at their disposal, they realized the market potentiality of the Indian subcontinent, and they also realized the volume of the trade. So they came into conflict with the Dutch and the Portuguese, and eventually they won. The brutal killing of some English traders by the Dutch in Amobia in 1623 further aggravated the situation. The Britishers on one after the other captured the Dutch stronghold. So that was how the Dutch were defeated by the British. We will go into these details. Today's topic is basically an introduction to the arrival of the European powers into the Indian subcontinent. The last power which we are going to discuss is the French, and the last European power to arrive in India were the French. The French East India Company was formed in the year 1664 during the reign of King Louis XVI to trade with India. In 1668, the French established their first factory at Surat, and in 1669, established another factory at Machilipatnam. So Surat and Machilipatnam were the initial stages where they started trading and established factories respectively. In 1673, the Mughal Subedar of Bengal allowed the French to set up a township at Chandranur Nagar. So 3 areas, they have concentrated on 3 areas. One was Surat, the other one was Machilipatnam, and the other one was Chandranur Nagar. Okay, so these were the 3 areas. So again, for the French also, for their commercial growth, Pondicherry was a example. So in 1674, the French obtained a village called Pondicherry from the Sultan of Bijapur, and founded a thriving city in which later became the main stronghold of the French in India. So they got Pondicherry, and even now Pondicherry looks like almost a French colony. The French East India Company, with the passage of the time, developed its trade bastions at Mahe, Karaikal, Balasore, and Kasim Bazar. So these were the 4 important areas where you have the French East India Company developing turning these areas into its trade centers. The French came to India mainly with the purpose of trade and commerce. From their arrival until in 1741, the objectives of the French were like those of the British, but purely commercial. These were the 2 giants. Britain and France were the 2 giants, commercial giants in Europe. They also become commercial giants in the Indian context. The French East India Company took hold of Yanam in 1723, Mahe on Malabar coast in 1725, and Karaikal in 1739. Okay, and then you have the Anglo-French Wars. So you have now seen that in brief. I have tried to tell you about the way these European powers have come. So the European powers have been, in the initial stages, they have been interested in trade. In fact, it has been an adventure for them. And after the adventure, when they saw the potentiality of the Indian markets and the volume of Indian trade, they started trading. And after trading, they started building factories, and then they developed their own markets. And in the entire process, they were having a commercial perception of India, basically in terms of trade and resources. We will be going into further details of the British and French expansion in India in the next class. For the time being, this class was basically focusing on the way and the phases in which the European, we can say the advent of European powers into the Indian subcontinent. Thank you.